Welcome, geometry students. Today we're going to talk about the target that asks us to classify and find measures of angles formed by parallel lines and a transversal. So first of all, what are parallel lines? We probably think of parallel lines from our past experience and lines that never cross or intersect. I'm going to add a little piece to that definition, and they're coplanar lines that do not intersect. We can't assume lines are parallel just by looking at them. We do have to have information that would provide support that would allow us to prove that they are indeed parallel. So keep that in mind. So what does this word coplanar mean? Well, collinear means that they're points. If I were to talk about collinear as a side note, you could put this in your annotations if you'd like. Collinear are points that fall on the same line. So these 3 points, for example, are collinear, whereas these 3 points are non-collinear because they are not on the same line. So coplanar means that they're on the same plane. So a plane you can think of as a piece of paper that goes on forever in every direction. So if we have parallel lines, that means that they have to be part of the same plane. Example 1 says to think of each segment in the figure as part of a line. Which line or lines, plane or planes, in the figure appear to fit the description? Lines parallel to AF, so I'm going to locate AF here, and they have to contain point E. So the only line that does not intersect AF and contains E would be the line EJ. So we can say AF, line AF, is parallel to line EJ. This symbol right here is how we would write parallel. It's just essentially two bars running next to one another. Then it asks us which plane or planes are parallel to FJA and containing point E. Well, the plane FJA, here's point F, J, and A. We use 3 capital letters to name a plane. So essentially, the plane that they're discussing is the pentagon here. And we want a plane parallel that will never intersect that and contains point E. So the plane that would do that would be plane AEB. Now keep in mind, all you need is 3 capital letters from this particular pentagon in the front. So we could have named that in many different ways. Plane ABC, plane ABD, and so forth. The order in which you write those is unimportant. So that plane is parallel to plane FJA. Okay, these terms that we're going to talk about next are extremely important, so please pay close attention to them. We're going to start with corresponding angles. Corresponding angles look like this. They're created by 2 lines, so if you notice these 2 lines clearly will eventually intersect, and a transversal. So all of the angle relationships we're going to look at in the next few minutes are created with the same scenario. We have 2 lines and then a line that intersects both of them. In this case, the line that intersects both of them, I'm going to draw in blue, and that's what we call a transversal. So a transversal is just simply a line that intersects 2 other lines. That's another very important term today. It says angle 1 and angle 5 are corresponding angles. Please mark angle 1 and angle 5. We don't know their measure, so we're just using that as a way to name the angle. We know that these are corresponding angles. This is the abbreviation for corresponding, since they are on the same side of the transversal. So if you notice our transversal in blue, you could either be on the left of that or on the right. Corresponding angles will be on the same side. So in this case, both of these angles are on the right side of the transversal. One of the angles is on the inside, so it's an interior angle, and the other is an exterior angle. Let's talk about that more in a moment. So an interior angle. Interior is just the space between the 2 lines, and then anything outside of that, so in this case above it or below it, would be an exterior angle. Now another thing you want to keep in mind with the angle relationships we're looking at here is none of them will be adjacent or even share a vertex for that matter. So by definition, if we look at this, this is corresponding, angle 5 is corresponding to 1 because they're on the same side of the transversal. One is inside, in this case angle 5, and the other is outside, angle 1. All right, alternate interior angles. So we're going to start with the exact same scenario. We need two lines. These two lines clearly will intersect. And then our transversal is in blue. So the transversal, reminder, is the line that intersects two other lines. All right, angle 2 is going to be located here, and angle 6 here. So angle 2 and angle 6 are called alternate interior angles. Now this one's helpful because the name kind of tells you what's going on. Alternate means alternating sides. So now in this case, the transversal in blue, we're on opposite sides. Whereas if you go back and look at corresponding angles, those two angles were on the same side of the transversal. So now we have one above the transversal and one below. But by the name interior, we know that they're both going to be in between. So they're both in between these two lines. So these are alternate interior angles because they are on different, that alternate means different, sides of the transversal, and both angles are interior angles. Keep in mind they can't share a vertex and they can't be adjacent. All right, what about alternate exterior angles? So alternate exterior angles look like this. Now my transversal is running horizontally. So keep in mind your different sides of the transversal could be above and below, or when we talk about alternating sides, it could be left and right. So it really just depends on how your picture's oriented. So in this case, angle 3 and angle 7 are alternate exterior angles. So angle 3 and angle 7 are alternate exterior angles. Here's the abbreviation for that. Since they are on, again, alternating sides or different sides of the transversal, and both angles are exterior angles. Last one is consecutive interior angles. So I have my two lines intersected by a transversal. So every single one of these angle relationships has started in the same way. Two lines and a transversal. So without having those three lines, we would not have any of these angles being created. So keep that in mind. That's the common piece of all four of these angle types. Angle 4 and angle 8 are consecutive interior angles. There's the abbreviation for that. Consecutive means, if you notice, the other two prior, by the way, were alternating. So consecutive means same side. So they are on the same side. There was one other angle type that was on the same side too, if you recall, and that was the corresponding angles. So the consecutive interior angles are similar in that way to the corresponding angles. So they're on the same side of the transversal, and both angles are interior angles. That's why they're called consecutive interior angles. So I sometimes think of these as same side interior angles. Okay, so 4 and 8 would be, for example, here and here. So if we look at that, they're both above the transversal. So in this case, our transversal is running horizontally. So in order to be on the same side, they'd have to either be both above or below. And since they have to be between those two lines for the interior, then that would be the two angles we would be using. Okay, as I mentioned, those four types of relationships, corresponding angles, alternate interior, alternate exterior, and consecutive interior angles, are extremely important. So if there's one you're not understanding in a little while, please make sure you ask me about that tomorrow. Okay, so this might help to clarify as well. It says to identify the special angle pairs in the diagram. So if we look at this, we're going to locate in our picture all of the corresponding angles. I will forewarn, there are 10 pairs of corresponding angles in this picture. So it's going to take us a little while to find them all, but we will be able to do that. As a reminder, corresponding means same side of the transversal, one inside, one outside. Okay, so I'm going to pick any angle. It doesn't matter which one I start with. I'm going to begin with angle 1. If I look at angle 1, in this case, my two lines are basically here and here in this situation. So my green line here is the transversal. So I'm kind of focusing on this part of my picture here. So if I look at angle 1, I need another angle that would pair up with it, that would be on the inside or in between those two lines and on the same side of the transversal. So angle 1 will match with angle 12. So angle 1 and angle 12 are corresponding. Now I'm going to focus in the same part of my diagram, but now I'm going to look at angle 4. Well, same side of that green transversal would be still above. But now if that's an interior angle, I need the angle that is outside or on the exterior. So that would be angle 11. So angle 4 and angle 11. Now I'm going to focus below that green line, the green transversal. So angle 2 is going to match up with angle 5. So angle 2 and angle 5 match up together to be corresponding angles. And then the last angle pair that would be corresponding angles along the green transversal would be this angle 3 and this angle 10. They're both on the same side of the transversal, in this case below. One is on the interior, that's angle 3, and one is on the exterior, angle 10. Okay, I have found all corresponding angle pairs along that transversal. So now I'm going to erase what was on my picture, and now I'm going to code it a little bit differently. Now we're going to use line M as the transversal. So the two lines that create the angles with that transversal now are these two I'm highlighting in blue. So if I look at this now, let's start with angle 12. Now when I talk about the same side of the transversal, I need to be left and right. So same side, in this case if it's on the same side as 12, it needs to be on the left side of that red transversal. So the other interior angle that's not adjacent, 9 for example is adjacent, so that's not a corresponding angle pair. But 12 would match up with angle 7, so angle 12 and angle 7 are corresponding angles. I'm going to have you go ahead and try and find the rest, so pause your video and try and find the rest of the angles along this transversal that would be corresponding, and then continue on and use line L as a transversal. So you have 5 more corresponding angle pairs to find. Go ahead and find those now. Okay, so we started with leaving off with the angle 9 and angle 5. So the next 5 angle pairs you should have found would be angle 9 and angle 5, angle 11 and angle 8, angle 10 and angle 6, angle 4 and angle 7, angle 3 and angle 8, angle 1 and angle 5, angle 2 and 6. So hopefully you found all of those. And it looks as though actually there were a couple more than I first initially said. So I apologize for that. So there were actually more than the 10 that I had brought up earlier. So hopefully you were able to find all of those. Let's move on to alternate interior angles. If it's all right, I'm going to clear my workspace. So I'm just going to erase this. You don't need to erase anything that you have. Hopefully you had a little more room than I did. Okay, so let's look at alternate interior. So I'm going to start with this green line as my transversal. So now I'm kind of limited because now I'm only dealing with interior angles. So for example, angle 1, angle 2, angle 11, and angle 10 are not going to be able to work for this because they are exterior angles for this particular transversal. So when I look at this alternate interior, angle 4, the other interior angle would be angle 9 because they can't be on the same side of the transversal. So angle 4 would be an alternate interior angle pair with angle 9. Likewise, angle 3 and angle 12 would work. Now that's just that transversal. Now let's go ahead and look at another transversal. We have line M. Once again, these angles on the outside don't work. So I have angle 9 matching up with angle 8. I also have angle 10 and angle 7. Last possible transversal is this one towards the bottom, line L. Again, these outside angles don't work. We only want the angles interior or in between those two lines. So angle 2 alternates with angle 7 and angle 3 with angle 5. That's it for the alternate interior angles. Now let's look at alternate exterior angles. Now we're going to be working with the outside angles. So I'll start with our transversal N. So now these inside angles can't make interior angles, so we're going to be looking at what alternates with 1. So 1 would alternate with 10. So angle 1 and angle 10, angle 11 and angle 2. Keep in mind they can't be on the same side of the transversal, and they both have to be on the exterior of the angles, or of the lines, excuse me. Let's look at line M. So now again, my interior angles don't work. So I'm going to get rid of all of these interior angles, but angle 12 would be alternate exterior to angle 6. Likewise, angle 11 with angle 5. And the last we need to look at is the transversal towards the bottom, line L. So these interior angles won't work, so angle 4 alternates with angle 6. And angle 1 with angle 8. Now the last is consecutive interior angles, so that's considered like the same side interior angles. So we're going to just repeat this process. Go ahead and pause your video and see if you can find those. So again, they're the same side interiors. Okay, so we have the angle pair, angle 3 and angle 9, angle 4 and angle 12, angle 9 and angle 7, angle 10 and angle 8, angle 3 and angle 7, and finally angle 2 and angle 5. One important thing I should have mentioned earlier, for example, this pairing, I could not just write 3 and 9. We need to make sure we're specifying that it's angle 3 and angle 9. So do include that as you're going along in case you didn't as you were taking your notes today. Go ahead and try your You Try Now and check your answers. Please try to do it without looking at the answers first so that you can kind of test your knowledge of these vocab words. Like I said before, they're extremely important. So look those over and come with questions if you have them. Have a good day.